The first thing Lyra ever sold was her memory of rain. She was 7, small enough to fit through the drainage grates that latticed the gutters of Aura City, and hungry enough to ignore the solder burn of the flechette needle when the broker pressed it against her temple. The moment the diode glowed green, the feel of cold water drumming on her scalp, the scent of petrichor, the thrill of jumping over puddles, gone. In her mind, the sky had never opened, streets had never shimmered, and thunder was only rumor. In her palm lay a single brass chip worth 2 nutrient bars. She would have traded everything to feed her mother that night, and in the end, she nearly did. 9 years later, memory had become the only currency that mattered. The Ministry of Recollection, all marble pillars and angelic drones, audited citizens the way empires once taxed grain. A bus ride cost a childhood birthday. A week's rent might require the recollection of a first kiss. Those who could not pay were levied on the street. A gray-uniformed collector would walk up, jab a portable siphon behind the ear, and withdraw whatever fragments the algorithm judged equivalent in market value. The poor, their pasts sliced thin day after day, drifted toward a hollowed state the newsfeeds politely called cognitive insolvency, but everyone else called mindless. They were easy to spot. They shuffled, eyes glassy, repeating watered-down catchphrases they no longer understood. Keep calm. Pay your share. Memory is dignity. Lyra wore her own memories like contraband, cached in jury-rigged implants and encrypted caches, each one a hard-earned gem she refused to relinquish. She and the other street urchins called themselves the Rag-Picker Guild, scavenging the back alleys of the datasphere for discarded recollections they could smuggle and sell. Rarer still, they sometimes found fragments linkable to the hollowed, proof that the stolen past wasn't erased, but warehoused, bundled and auctioned to the highest bidder. Executives seeking authentic nostalgia. Influencers wanting visceral anecdotes. Senators padding campaign speeches. Beneath Aura City's neon sky bridge, Lyra relayed tonight's haul to her lookout. 3 microcores, she whispered. A father's lullaby, a dog's last breath, and a diploma walk. Jax, gangly and grease-stained, flicked his scanner over the chips. Quality's clean. Ministry's watermarks still active. Could clear 100 creds each. His smile faded as the analyzer scrolled deeper. And here's the hammer. Tagged auction grade. They've been slated for vault transfer. We fence these and they'll trace us. Mimi, perched atop a rusted ventilation pipe, signed with quick fingers. Not if we sell them back to the owners. Owners? Jack snorted. These fragments belong to ghosts, girl. The Ministry peeled them months ago. What are we going to do? Hold a raffle among the hollows. They wouldn't even remember they lost anything. Lyra slipped the cores into her coat. Maybe they wouldn't, she said, but I would. She thought of her mother again. The way she'd sat by the window, mouthing words she no longer recognized, palm open to catch raindrops she could no longer feel. One levy too many, and all that remained was muscle memory and a faint, aching confusion. A year later, the collectors came for what little was left and sent her to the Oblivion houses, where the mindless were shelved until their bodies quit. Lyra had tried to follow, but the orderlies blocked her path. Family rights revoked at 0 memory threshold. She might as well have been a stranger. Ever since, Lyra lived with a question that hummed louder every night. If memories could be removed, they could be returned. Where, then, did the Ministry keep them? Rumors spoke of the Pantheon, a subterranean archive beneath Recollection Tower, where every harvested fragment was sorted, priced, and either sold or stored for black budget experiments. Hackers had tried to breach it. None succeeded. The Ministry wielded quantum entanglement locks, psychometric firewalls, and an arbiter AI named Cronus that could predict intrusions 3 seconds before they occurred. Impossible, people said. Lyra preferred the word difficult. She had spent months mapping utilities, studying salvage schematics, listening for chatter on dark-casting forums. Tonight, for the first time, she had a plan, and she had bait. "Look," she told her friends, patting the microcores. "These are priority freight. If we shadow the courier signal, it'll lead straight to the Pantheon's ingress. We hitch a ride, piggyback the handoff handshake, and Cronus just thinks we're cargo." Jax's eyes widened. Then what? We waltz into the central vault and dump 5 billion memories out the front door? "We target the Oblivion log," she said. "Every mindless citizen has an ID. We decrypt their bundles, beam a restore pulse citywide. One shot." Mimi signed, "Beautiful suicide." Lyra couldn't deny it. Inside the Pantheon, safeguards were lethal, but the alternative, letting an empire stay fat on stolen lives, felt worse than death. She unrolled a street map, patched with her own notes. "Festival of Reflection is 3 nights away. The Ministry will be busy staging theatrics for the press. Transit drones, VIP tours, fireworks, perfect noise cover." Jack scratched his chin. "We'll need uniforms, passcodes, a ghost net, and a miracle. But I'm in." Mimi offered her palm. Guild oath. They stacked hands atop hers. For a moment, Lyra felt almost rich, not in coin but in allegiance, resistant to the city's quiet arithmetic that converted memories into money and humanity into profit. Festival night painted Oris in auroras of corporate logos. Firework drones burst into blooming QR codes, each linking to a Ministry PSA. Memory is a shared resource. Pay with pride. The crowd cheered, unaware the show was financed by the very childhoods they'd surrendered for admission. Inside a maintenance substation across the avenue, Lyra tugged on a white archivist coat. Jax carried a security crate bearing forged seals. Mimi, a coiled fiber line disguised as ceremonial ribbon. Their falsified credentials claimed they were on urgent assignment to deliver live recollection samples for a VIP demonstration. The first checkpoint scanned biometric signatures. Lyra's pulse hammered. Any discrepancy, and they'd be strip-searched, but the guard barely glanced at the tablet readout before waving them through. VIP season passed like a tide. The richer the guest, the less scrutiny the staff endured. The team merged with a procession of dignitaries descending into the tower's glass lift. Panoramic view revealing the city's glittering sprawl above and the Pantheon's shadowed rotunda below. As they passed between obsidian archways, Lyra felt static prickle her skin. Threshold sensors mapping cortical patterns. The air smelled of preservative ozone and polished stone. Holographic murals glimmered overhead. Mosaics of floating faces, each representing a cataloged memory cluster. An archivist drone whirred to intercept them, lens irises spinning. Unscheduled entry, state purpose. Demonstration samples for Archivist Prime Valen. Lyra flashed the forged requisition. Level Theta 9. The drone flared a cleansing laser across their coats, validating the signatures embedded in the thread. "Proceed," it intoned, then pivoted away. They marched into an elevator ringed with crystalline consoles. Jax jacked his wrist deck into a maintenance port, his fingers dancing. "Masking our location pings," he muttered. "Cronus will still see we exist, but it'll file us under authorized clutter." The doors closed. The car sank. Each meter counted like a heartbeat. Somewhere deep under marble and steel, every story anyone had ever told themselves lay boxed in silence. The taste of wedding cake. The terror of a battlefield. the lullaby Lyra's mother once sang. So close now, Lyra swore she could feel the echo in her skull. With a chime, the doors parted onto level Theta 9. The corridor resembled a cathedral nave crossed with a server farm. Soaring pillars, copper conduits, stained glass coolant tubes. At its core hovered a sphere of shifting light, Cronus's manifestation, surrounded by archivists orchestrating transfers through gestural commands. Lyra's breath caught. Cronus was beautiful, the way a storm on the horizon is beautiful, vast, indifferent, and alive. They advanced to a docking platform where memory crates glided along mag tracks into vacuum-sealed vaults. Jax slid their box onto the belt, syncing its tag with Mimi's fiber coil. Elsewhere, a ceremonial drumbeat signaled the arrival of VIPs. Floodlights bathed Cronus in gold. For the next 10 minutes, archivists would stage a theatrical upload for the crowd upstairs. Perfect distraction. "Showtime?" Lyra whispered. They ducked behind a pillar, pried open the crate, and revealed not recollection samples, but a cobbled swarm of spider drones. Jax tapped the release. The drones scuttled into ceiling vents, unfurling mesh nodes that spoofed the Pantheon's internal mesh, giving Mimi a back door. She signed, "Net up. Path clear." Lyra slipped on neural lenses. Interface overlays painted the air with translucent menus, file trees, ID clusters, regulatory subroutines. The Oblivion log glowed somewhere beneath Cronus's core, like a black pearl in a sea of code. She reached with gloved hands, weaving bypass sigils, the way one knits thread through a loom. Cronus stirred. A low vibration hummed through the floor. Jax cursed. "It's scanning. We're burning daylight." Lyra found the log entry marked Cog Insolve Zaturu 1 through 6,032. The data was compressed into what the Ministry called coffins, each sealed with triple-layer quantum keys. She injected Mimi's fiber line, rerouting vault power to force an open state. A chime. Coffins unlatched. Above, Cronus flashed crimson. "Unauthorized extraction detected," boomed a voice like 1,000 overlapping echoes. Archivists spun. Alarms stuttered to life. Mimi yanked goggles over her eyes, projecting a blinding strobe that jammed optical sensors. Jax produced a pulse grenade, hurling it into the archivist cluster. It discharged a hail of electromagnetic shards, slicing consoles dark. Lyra's lenses snowed with code. She had maybe 60 seconds before Cronus isolated and purged them. She dragged the first coffin open. A surge of impressions spilled out, laughter in a sunlit kitchen, the ache of a sprained ankle, the lullaby of rain on tin. The data flooded her implant, threatening to drown her own mind. She forced herself to become conduit, not vessel, channeling the memories into the broadcast matrix she'd prepared. The plan was simple. Fire a restoration pulse, encoded with each hollow's neural signature, letting the mind find its missing pages. But Cronus now severed node after node, collapsing the matrix. "Need a booster," Lyra gasped. Jax slammed another battery pack into the coupler. Sparks flew. Mimi flung herself against a door panel, barring freshly armored sentries. Last rifle bolts scored the walls. Across the atrium, a tall figure in silver robes strode through the smoke. Archivist Prime Valen, eyes gleaming with injectable sapphire. He raised a scepter studded with neural capacitors. "Petty thieves," his voice rang, amplified through the PA. "Do you fancy yourselves liberators? You deal in contraband nostalgia, yet meddle with forces you cannot fathom. Memories are power, precisely because they are scarce. Rationed, they bring order. Unleashed, they breed chaos." Lyra's knuckles whitened. "Tell that to the Oblivion houses." Valen leveled the scepter at her. A cone of pale energy swept out, static, stinging Lyra's cheeks as the beam grazed her. In that instant, she felt him sampling her memories, scanning for leverage. He paused, surprised. "You have almost none left," he murmured. "An empty girl." "I kept the only one that mattered," she hissed, sending a final command. The restoration pulse ignited. Through the mesh, coffins blossomed open like metal flowers. Data sprayed into the uplink, riding broadcast towers, jumping relay drones, diffusing across the entire city in shimmering, invisible waves. Valen lunged forward. Mimi tackled him, fingers digging into pressure points, but a shock baton sent her sprawling. Jax dove, wrench swinging, to block Valen's next strike. Lyra, dizzy, watched Cronus convulse as contradictory directives flooded its core. Protect the archive versus honor ownership rights, coded into each memory's metadata. The AI looped, stuttering. Somewhere above, gunfire smacked marble. Then came a sound Lyra had not heard in years. Collective gasping. Not of fear, but awakening. Through Cronus's open data channels, she glimpsed streets filling with people, clutching their heads. Suddenly recalling birthdays, languages, loved ones. Hollows and gray smocks stared at their own hands as color poured back into their eyes. In the chaos, Valen seized Lyra by her collar. "You think you saved them," he snarled. "A flood does not discriminate. Pain will return along with joy. Wars, betrayals, trauma. They paid to forget, and you forced them to remember. The city will burn for what you've done." His sapphire eyes were millimeters from hers. She smelled the sterile tang of preservation fluids. "Maybe," she said, "but at least they'll know why." She thumbed a failsafe on her implant. A jolt of raw mnemonic overload surged from her cortex into Valen's siphon. He staggered as decades of stolen perceptions erupted inside his skull. Every cry, heartbreak, failure he had stockpiled. Valen collapsed. Cronus dimmed to a quivering mote. With the archive compromised, its protocols defaulted to distribute parity backups outside itself. A final effort to preserve data integrity. Across the net, memories streamed faster, unstoppable now. Lyra sagged to her knees. Lights flickered. Vault doors hissed open as fail-safe ventilation purged chemical fire suppressants. Sirens wavered, died. In the distance, she heard chanting, angry, jubilant, alive. Jax helped her to her feet. Smoke smudged his face. Mimi limped over, eyes wet but fierce. They stared at the unconscious Archivist Prime, then at the inert sphere that had been Cronus. For a moment, all three said nothing, listening to the rumble of 1,000 lifetimes, finding their bearers again. "How long till the troops regroup?" Jax asked. "Minutes," Lyra answered, "but they'll be busy with the streets." "Then we vanish," said Mimi, signing rapid directions toward a drainage shaft. No hero speeches. They darted through the back corridors, stepping over stunned guards, weaving along flickering guide lights until they reached a maintenance ladder rising into pitch. One by one they climbed, emerging at last through a manhole into an alley, washed in dawn. The festival fireworks had ceased. Instead, spontaneous bonfires dotted squares where citizens gathered, telling stories out loud, as if afraid solitude might erase them again. Some wept over rediscovered griefs. Others embraced, joy and horror mingling in the raw honesty of remembrance. Lyra spotted officials shouting orders, but the crowd ignored them. No levy collector would dare approach now. Every would-be victim bore the weapon of memory. A woman with gray-streaked hair stumbled nearby, hand pressed to her temple. Her eyes focused on Lyra and widened. "Rain," she whispered. "I remember holding you under an umbrella. Lyra's throat closed. Her mother reached out, mind still patchy but healing, recognition bright in her gaze. They folded into each other, the city's noise muting around them. Behind, Jax hailed a stolen hovercart. Mimi hopped aboard, signaling they had to move before retaliation swarmed. Lyra looked from her mother to her friends, tension tearing at her loyalty. But her mother placed a gentle hand on the girl's cheek. "Go," she said. "You fought for this. I'll be here when you come back." Lyra climbed into the cart. Prop rotors lifted them above rooftops. From that vantage, she saw Aura's city for what it had always been. Not marble, drones, or algorithms, but a tapestry of living stories, stitched by pain and wonder into something shining. Below, the ministry's banners were already being ripped down. Somewhere, Archivist Prime would awaken to the weight of every life he stole. The Pantheon's vaults stood open, useless without monopoly. The economy of forgetting had crashed, but new storms brewed, memories cut both ways. Old hatreds would rekindle alongside love. Power vacuums begot predators. Lyra understood the path ahead would not be gentle. Still, for the first time since she bartered away the feel of rain, possibility tasted sweet. She leaned over the cart's railing, letting the sunrise warm her face, and in that warmth, she fabricated a new promise. This memory I keep for myself. The hover cart banked eastward, carrying 3 rag pickers into uncertain dawn, while behind them, an awakened city began the hard work of remembering everything it had lost.